What's up, guys? So, the it's not a question today. It's more of a statement. There's one thing that this individual said that I wanted to address. So here's the question. What question? It's such like I'm so used to it. E166er. I said, most of the people in your position got busted, made a deal, and now work for the feds. You got busted, got out, and are enemies with the feds, if only just ideologically. I have just no compassion in my heart for them at all. Whether you're talking about, Department of Homeland Security, or United States postal inspectors, or especially federal prison or BOP employees, which stands for Bureau of Prisons employees. Hands down, some of the most laziest degenerate people. Like you look up just some of the things that are in the news regarding federal prisons, and it's like they're like the FCI Dublin, which they call it the rape club, where like the warden, like a ton of staff members were basically like raping female inmates. And it was like a culture. It's absolutely disgusting to me. And it's like and we're prosecuting and giving people life who for drugs, and then it's like Biden hops on and again, like, I'm not big in politics at all, but I hate all presidents. There's not I don't like any of them. I think the two last real presidents, they both got shot in the head. I was like JFK, trying to audit the Federal Reserve, and Lincoln, trying to create the greenback. You mess with the bankers and get shot in the head. Kind of how it goes. But I don't, so I have to be careful on my rants, because especially with stuff like this, because with this kind of topic, like, I can go on for hours. Like typically those people who do rat, like, that's who they are, and people who don't rat, it's not because they don't rat, I don't think anyways, out of like fear of telling, or like, any of that. It's just, who they are, so you get the people who put other people in a box to avoid going into one themselves, or to reduce the severity of it. And then you have the people who just will never do it. And I would definitely classify myself as the latter, man. I've proven that. But everyone says, that they would never rat. And, that's one thing that, you ever do any criminal stuff with anyone, God forbid you ever get caught for it, you will realize is that, those, the 98% of people who told you that are liars. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the way the world is. There's literally there's no solidarity or honor. And like, the one good thing about going to federal prison is like going there and like you meet, so like a lot of guys that didn't rat are screwed up in some other way, right? They're institutionalized, or they're just socio or psychopaths. But there's really just one guy. There's a couple of different people, but like there's one individual who I think I'll absolutely be lifelong friends with, because he's solid and we are very much alike. We both, our crime, we both committed our crimes, both economic crimes, both drug crimes, both to support and try to better our family. And I have a lot of respect for this man. And there's so few out there that are like that, and I think that's it's really a shameful thing at the end of the day that you have so many people who just turn state's witness and basically work for the government. Probably one of my favorite Probably one of my favorite songs about this topic is Joyner Lucas, Snitch. I think it's very well done. But like, you know, at the end of the day, if you're going to go out there and you're going to do something, obviously you're free to do whatever you want, you know, but I think, you know, as an adult, whether you're a man or a woman, as an adult, you know, you accept responsibility for what it is that you do, you know? So like, you know, if you get popped and like, that's what it is, take your bid, you know, like don't give 10 other people, you know, bids. It's like, it's literally like a modern day Salem witch hunt, you know, the war on drugs nonsense, you know? And it's unfortunate because it's a big business, you know? And it's like, you know, a lot of people look at that and they say like, you know, well, you know, those people deserve to be in prison, blah, blah, blah. But like, at the end of the day, you're definitely right about, you know, a lot of them, you know, because there's a lot of just absolute whack jobs. You get a lot of masochists, people who just like to see people in pain, like a lot of whack jobs there's a lot of men that I met that are in prison that, you know, should be in prison. You know, I wouldn't want them out and, you know, around my family or, you know what I mean? Is they're whack jobs. And unfortunately, that's just, you know, kind of the way the world is. But I think there's some people that definitely should be in prison, but I think like a good amount, you know, I mean, at least half, you could have doing much more productive things. But at the end of the day, it's not as profitable for the people who, you know, senators who own stock in a private prison, or, you know, who own stock in a company that sells a product to a private prison, or has a prison that manufactures things for them, or, you know, anything along those lines. Like a lot of times they hire prisoners to do jobs that they can't afford to do in the United States. Like, you know, what better way to compete with the wages in Mexico than to have a slave labor system that is legalized? And that's how I see it. That's really, at the end of the day, that's how I see it. Like at the end of the day, I cannot like, and even though what I did was illegal, like at the end of the day, I think what they do, incarcerating, you know, the ridiculous amount of people that are incarcerated, and you know, taking like non-violent drug offenders and sticking them in, you know, cells with dudes that are, you know, just multiple murderers doing multiple life bids. Like I think that's criminal, you know. I think turning people who had no victim in their, you know, in their paperwork into someone who, you know, when they get out, now, you know, they went in for, you know, a non-violent crime, and, you know, they end up doing 15 years and they get out. They're a hardened criminal, you know? And it's like, at the end of the day, if prevention was really the thing that we were trying to do here, if rehabilitation was really the goal, it would absolutely be possible, you know? The other thing to keep in mind is that, you know, they're not omnipresent and omnipotent, right? Like they might be able to do a lot, and they might be corrupt, and they might do whatever they want, whenever they want. But at the end of the day, like they have limits, right? They don't know everything, and they're not everywhere. And that's why, like, you can have a maximum security prison and you still have drugs in it. You still have cell phones in it. Like, if you can't stop that shit in a maximum security prison, where are you? Do you think that you will ever stop it in a free society? So yeah, and like that whole system of enslavement and artificial scarcity that exists in this country, and taxation, as a tax farm. And like people are like, oh, well, you know, it's not a tax farm, because like if it was a tax farm, then, you know, like our money goes to roads, and it goes to, you know, building water lines, and it goes to, you know, social programs. And I'm like, okay, like, do you not think that farmers build irrigation and have health care for their livestock? And a side issue, I digress. Yeah, I would rather die than help the feds, because they they are more corrupt than the majority of the criminals that I have met in federal prison. I've met more corrupt BOP employees than prisoners that were in like the cells, that were there for, breaking the law or being accused of breaking the law. Again, like a conspiracy bid, just all it requires is someone telling on you. This is what I bought from, so-and-so. And like they'll go after so-and-so. And it's very difficult to, prove them wrong. Cause like, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in feds. Like that doesn't exist. Like they have, preponderance of the evidence where like, they're just going to say, if like a state charge is like guilty until proven innocent, where it's like, you're trying to prove I walked through a field and like you have a video of me walking through the field, you can say beyond a doubt, we know that's you. Federally though, like that's not how it works. Like federally, it would be like, well, the sneaker marks that were in the field were about the same size as your shoe. And, we think you did it. So based on preponderance of the evidence, we're going to go ahead and convict you and say that you're guilty and give you 25 years. And like, that's a real thing that happens, that exists where it's just like, they're just saying like the feds can indict a ham sandwich. And it's absolutely true. They can indict and convict you for whatever. There's an FBI, there's a Harvard study out that said your average citizen, like those of you who are watching this, who, you pay your taxes, you're, good citizens, you work your 9 to 5, all that kind of, you're a business owner, whatever it is you do. Like the Harvard study says that, on average, your average person commits 3 felonies a day. So if they want you, they will get you, and that's because like at the end of the day, there's so many laws that you can't remember them. I can't remember them, just look at tax law alone, tomes and tomes of books, if you go to a law office, just go to a law office and look. And like that law office you go to, guess what? They're probably specialized in one form of law, whether it's criminal law, civil law, litigation, or, intellectual law, like, international law, whatever it is, they specialize. Now they specialize in it, and they got, a room with, or maybe even a possible library with books and books and books and millions of pages of rules, regulations, laws, policies, and procedures that they have to know for that specialty. So if they have to have all that, and they have to study for 7 years, and, at the end of the day, they become a lawyer, and they have that, that one specialty. How is it that you think you're possibly going to know all the specialty? You're going to know all the laws. You're not. And you're going to break a shitload of laws. It's just, how many do you get caught for? How many are intentional? And even if they're not intentional, I remember reading a case about a lady who, her boyfriend's in the shower, right? So his phone rings. He's like, "Oh, can you get that?" So she gets it, and so the guy's like, "Oh, hi, I'm looking for whoever." And I'm Paul. Can you just let him know Paul called? She said, "Yeah, sure, I'll let him know." Hangs up, right? So she lets her boyfriend know. He gets out of the shower. "Hey, Paul called." "Oh, all right, cool, thanks." So later on, he's a drug dealer. He gets indicted, and they've this dude, Paul, says, "Oh, well, she answered the phone." The feds go, "Okay, well, that's conspiracy. You were aiding in a criminal enterprise." And she legit didn't know anything about this. She's like, I answered the phone once, Like, "Oh, yeah, we don't care." You give her 10 years. That's the system we're talking about, and it's like, people are like, "Oh, well, reform. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like cancer that's spread all over the body. There's no amount of cutting it out that is going to cure it or make it better. Sometimes you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. It's just, he's just too broken. And our system is at a point where it is so built and set up, specifically for profiting off people, that you're never going to be able to change it, in my opinion, and like, for me personally, it's just like if you were made to be a slave, would you ever help the plantation owner? You know, and I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I'd step on his head if he was drowning. You know what I mean? Like I got out and I wrote my book on compassionate release. And it, you know, it's not going to make any real money, you know, at the end of the day. Because like what I know what these dudes do, they get one book and they share it to each other, you know, and I'm good with that. I don't care. It's not about the money. But like that one book, my only goal is like if I hear about one person who gets out of federal prison because I wrote that book, then the year and a half it took to write that book is absolutely worth it. You know what I mean? And having that knowledge centralized so they can fight that system. I mean, even just I think about like that book going to these different federal prisons and those people in those prisons writing for their freedom to the federal courts. And even that to me is a win, you know, enabling people to fight the system, giving them the tools they need to do it. That's amazing, you know. I think that's where, you know, that intellectual battle, that's really at the end of the day where, yeah, well, yeah, way off topic, but, yeah, I could never work for the feds. I'd rather die. Yeah, that's what it is. But I appreciate the kind words. And, you know, wasn't really a question, so I can't say I enjoyed answering it, but I did enjoy responding to the statement, and kind of sharing a little bit more about my thoughts, on the general world, and hopefully they weren't too far out there. But anyways, I enjoyed, you know, doing this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.